Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from AnthonysCustoms, and for this review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends Toysrus exclusive HYRDA 2-pack, which is essentially just an army builder's dream. So we had one of these a long time ago that was a SHIELD 2-pack, came with a few cool accessories, some alternate heads. This one is like that, but on steroids. So this is a great example of how Hasbro can save a lot of money by reusing everything they already have and give us something that we actually might want. So this is a pretty cool thing. There is one drawback to this, and we'll talk about that as we go, and obviously everything's reused, so there are going to be other minor drawbacks, but as a set of reused parts, this is pretty cool. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, so since we have two figures, I'm going to do them both in one review. You don't need two separate videos. Don't need to milk the views. We have a 7¼ inch figure out of the big guy, which is the Brute or the Enforcer, and then we have just your standard Hydra Soldier, which is just about 6½ inches. So this is the Bucky Cap mold. This is the Hyperion upper with the Nuke lower, which is essentially just Nuke altogether, but this started way back with Hyperion. So again, it's all reused parts, which I totally understand for something like this, and they did give us plenty in the pack, so that's why this is definitely okay in my book. It's awesome. The downside is we don't have a ton of paint. It's not terrible what we have. It's better than most of the figures actually, but considering it is all reused parts, even though we have a fair amount of plastic, I would have liked to see some more paint in a few places, and I'll talk about that as we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about accessories. The first thing I want to mention is that the chest pieces are removable. So the big guy, you can remove the vest, and then he just has the blank green upper body. And then for the soldier guy, you can just remove the harness, and then you do have a vest to swap onto there. So you have some interchangeability there. As far as heads go, for the smaller guy, we have the standard Hydra head. We have the Taskmaster head, and then we have the old Shield head, which is now a Hydra head with the helmet. For the big guy, we have the Captain Britain head with the stripes on it, which actually looks really awesome. Then we have the Radioactive Man head that's been repainted to look like a different person. And then we have the Nuke head that's been repainted with the scars, which again, it's a pretty cool paint job. Not my favorite head in the world, but it looks pretty good. And now as far as weapons go, we have the big knife that goes in the back of the vest for the Brute. We have a grenade launcher thingy, which I'm pretty sure we've had before, but I can't quite place it. So I could be wrong. This could be a new thing, but I don't think it is. And the cool thing about this is it does have the Hydra logo on it, which is very nice. And you do have the removable drum for the, what I can only assume would be grenades. We have that really stupid looking curvy gun, which I hate a whole bunch, with no paint on it. We have this little shotgun, which we saw a bunch of times, but it has no paint on it. It's actually a good mold, but again, no paint. And then we have our rocket launch chair, which is an okay mold, but again, no paint. So that's where the issue is, guys. I mentioned there is one thing in particular, and that's the lack of paint on the accessories in particular. We really could have used a little bit more, and I don't think it would have cost them enough to be a problem, but they chose to not give us that. I think the figures generally have enough paint. Obviously, more would always be better. You know, painting a couple extra little things silver on there, or a little bit of shading would have gone a long way, but I think as they are, they're probably good enough. So we're going to set down the Brute for now. Let's run through the articulation on this guy quickly, just so you guys can kind of see. I will point out, they do have the Hydra logos on their shoulders, and it looks pretty good. There's the little one, and the big one, definitely not the best example right there. You're going to get some that are better and some that are worse, so that's just kind of the luck of the draw. Actually, you know what? Before I go forward, I want to ask you guys one thing. You may notice my background's a little bit darker, and that's because I've moved my review station farther away from it, so the lights are still here for the review. Darker back there. Do you guys like that better, or do you prefer the background to be a little bit brighter like it normally is? Just curious, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Okay, moving forward, we have our standard neck articulation for the Bucky Cap mold. Pretty good implementation, though. The head sits pretty well on it normally, and then it moves really nicely. Of course, you have your full rotation, and then a little bit of rock back and forth. And all of the heads fit pretty well on the pegs. That's because they were originally on these same pegs, so there's really no issue. For the shoulders, you know, we've seen that all before. Really good range, full rotation, bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, and then you have your wrist swivel and hinge. Of course, the yellow paint on the wrists, not the best. It's not done poorly, but it's the wrong color, so it definitely could be better. The ab crunch, we're still pretty floppy on this Bucky Cap mold. I think it's time to retire it, or at least to redo it so that it doesn't have this kind of problem. It's functional, but it's a little floppy. Waist twist is fine, floating belt. Hips go a little bit better than 45. Legs go pretty much all the way forward, no problem there. A little bit back, and then we have our thigh swivel, our double jointed knees, Our shin swivel, which does not line up still. They have not adjusted that. It's still offset, so that's kind of a bummer. I don't know if you guys, yeah, I think you can see that. The yellow part is in when it should be centered, which is a bummer. The foot works pretty well on this guy. I do like the bucky cap feet, even though they look tiny. They're actually not that small. I think they're a little small, but it's probably one of the better instances where we don't have super fat ankles, so it looks a little bit better in general. So pretty standard figure, not too much to talk about new there. As far as this guy goes, we have all the same features again. I will get to this, because this is a common thing. I've got a bunch of these guys now, and this is not isolated. He's got a super loose arm in some positions. Other thing that's still a problem, the heads, or the neck I should say, it's still that standard joint, but on the Hyperion mold, you only have certain positions that actually work. It kind of snaps in and out of certain positions. So be aware of that, but you do get full rotation, and boy does that head look awesome on there. I'm not wrong, that is Captain Britain, right? I'm pretty sure that's the Captain Britain head, but it looks really, really cool in this version. For the shoulders, still a good range, full rotation, bicep swivel. This side's no problem. Double jointed elbow, wrist swivel and hinge. No trigger fingers on this guy also, so he can really only hold the bazooka, and since his hand doesn't have the vertical joint, it only has the horizontal one, it's pretty awkward for him to hold it, so that's kind of a problem. And then as I mentioned, this shoulder has some serious looseness issues, so be aware of that. The ab crunch works just fine, but the vest is not really designed for it to work effectively, so we're going to take that off so I can show you the ab crunch on its own. So the ab crunch is a fine ab crunch. No problem at all other than the sculpt, so just beware that the vest is going to limit it. Waist twist is fine. Hips do go out surprisingly far. I don't know how they made the fattest figure have the best hips. I don't know how they managed that. It's pretty miraculous. They go almost all the way forward. They don't go too far back. We do have a thigh swivel, which is nicely hidden by the straps. Definitely not painted very well for these pouches and straps, though. They also decided to not paint these knees, and the knees do have minimal range. So it's probably good enough for the big guy, but it's still limited and pretty ugly and not painted. That's a bummer. We have a shin swivel at the top of the boot, and then the ankles work well enough, so I'm okay with that ankle rocker. So yeah, it's a really nice set. We definitely are missing some paint where it doesn't need to be, but it would so benefit the figures to be there. So yeah, you know, it's not a huge thing, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And I can just tell already people are going to scoop this set up left and right. It's clearly designed to be an army builder type of thing, so people are probably going to buy... I mean, you have an option to make 6 different figures out of this set, so I'm guessing people are going to buy 3 of the set, which is what I did. So, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. I don't feel like they cheated us. I just feel like they did skimp on the paint more than they needed to, especially with the weapons being basically all one color. But yeah, I definitely recommend it, guys. I think you'll enjoy it for the most part. It's a fun little set. It's nice to have the 2 different size figures. That's pretty cool. And yeah, I like it. I think you guys will too. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.